we are going to get in our packets, The Wonderful World of Word Problems, and we are going to start looking at real life problems. So for those of you who always want to know, when are we ever going to use this? This is your time. One of the things we think about when we're talking about real life problems and algebra in general are the words dependent and independent. And we think about that when in relation to our variables. So just think about those words for a minute, what they mean. And dependent means it's going to rely on something else. Independent means it doesn't rely on anything else. It's all on its own. Okay? And we're going to identify which are our dependent and our independent variables with these problems. So let's take a look at World Connections. They're a long-distance phone company that charges $40 a month plus 80 cents a minute for each call. So what we want to think about is we want to write an equation for the total monthly cost, we'll call it C, for M minutes of long-distance calls. So what is our dependent variable, C or M, and what is our independent variable, C or M? Well, the cost really depends on the number of minutes you talk, right? So our dependent variable would be the cost. And you should write this down. If I write it, you write it. And the independent variable would be would be the number of minutes. So I want to think about this. And let's say that, let's look at B first. A customer made 48 minutes of long-distance calls in a month. How much was his bill? Well, think about it, right? His cost is going to be this $40 charge, because no matter what, they get charged $40, plus they get charged 80 cents per minute. So I'm going to have to multiply the 80 cents by the 48 minutes to get his total cost, right? So if you work out those numbers, you would get 40 plus 38.40, and his total bill for the month is going to be $78.40. Okay? Now, if I want to write a general equation, this is what this wants. It wants a general equation for the total monthly cost. So think if you might be able to create something like that. What would it look like? Well, we're going to have the same cost, and no matter what, it's $40. But it's 80 cents per minute. Okay? So that's what our situation looks like for most of these problems. We call this our fixed cost, because no matter what, we have to pay that $40. And this is our variable cost, because that varies depending on the minutes. So there's a lot of vocabulary here that works into play. A cab company charges $1.25 for the first mile and $1.10 for each additional mile after that. I think what I want to do is I want to come back to this one, because this one's a little tricky and we don't have enough experience to do that. So let's do number 3 first. It costs $28 per day plus 16 cents per mile to rent a car. If Mario rented a car for 1 day and drove 42 miles, how much did he owe the rental company? So the cost for his car is going to be the $28 plus 16 cents times 42 miles. So if you work out the math on that, you can pause here and do that decimal multiplication all by yourself. Your cost should work out to be, pause, calculate, come back, and it is $34.72. Now they want a general equation for the cost of the rental car for X miles and 1 day. All right, so that's going to be my 20. Why don't you try to pause it and create your own equation and see if it matches mine. It's going to be the $28 plus, yeah, that's right, 16 cents for X miles. And here X equals the number of miles. Right there, you told us that. So that's my general cost. My dependent variable is what? My dependent variable is the cost, C. And my independent variable is the number of miles, or, sorry, they did X. Okay? Now let's go back and look at the one up above. And just to be clear on this one we just did, my fixed cost, right? No matter how many miles I drive, this is my fixed, and this is my variable cost. My variable cost is 16 cents, and my fixed cost is the $28. Now let's go look at the one up above, because this one's a little bit trickier. A cab company charges $1.25 for the first mile and $1.10 for each mile after. Write an equation and use the formula to find the cost of a 10-mile cab ride. Now you got to really think about this, because $1.25 for the first mile.
Yeah, Metcalf, call 1833 Tim.
So the first mile is $1.25 and $1.10 for each additional mile. So if you go 10 miles, you're paying $1.10 for 9 of those miles and $1.25 for 1 mile, right? If I go 20 miles, I'm paying 19 times $1.10 and 1 times $1.25. All right? So what we're going to do here is we're going to say I want the equation cost to be $1.25 plus $1.10, but am I going to make the $1.10 times n? I would think not, because I'm not getting charged $1.10 for my 10-mile cab ride or my 20-mile cab ride. Okay, I'm getting charged n minus 1 for that. All right? So if we think about that, a 10-mile cab ride, I get $1.25. That takes care of my first mile, and then it's $1.10 times 10 minus 1, or 9. So you can do the math there. Pause here. So my final cost is going to be $11.15. Identify your dependent and independent variables. So my dependent is going to be my cost, and my independent is going to be my miles. Yes? Fixed and variable. My fixed is the $1.25, and my variable is the $1.10. Let's go on the back. So read the first question, number 4. Pedro works for a pizza parlor. How much does he earn if he works 18 hours? So, $6.50 per hour. So his earnings are going to be $6.50 times 18, right? You can do the math there. And if you calculate that out, you should get his earnings are $117. Not bad. All right, so an equation for the amount Pedro would work for working H hours is going to just be 650H. My dependent is my earnings, and my independent is going to be the hours. Okay? And this is all variable in that case. It all depends on how much. He doesn't get paid anything unless he works some hours. All right. The cost of renting a bus for a field trip to Darien Lake is $250 plus $425 per student. How much will it cost if 30 students go on the field trip? So my cost is going to be $250 plus $4.25 for 30 students. Go ahead, do the math, work it out.
Mercedes Curry to the tutoring center. Mercedes Curry, go to the tutoring center right away.
Sorry about those interruptions, guys. Drawback of doing the videos after school. All right, so the cost is $377.50. You can go ahead and write an equation for n students, and C equals 250 plus 425H. Your dependent is going to be your cost, and your independent is going to be your hours. That's an N, sorry about that. Make that a little N students. And your fixed is the 250, and your variable is the 425. Good? Why don't you try the next problem on your own, and you can come back and check with me. Okay, this one again is kind of like that cab company one, because it's 55 cents for the first minute of a long distance call. So if you didn't read that carefully, you might want to pause here and try it again. Because remember, this is like that number 2, where each additional minute beyond the first minute is going to be a different cost. So if you didn't read it that way, why don't you try it again on your own? Okay, so my cost is going to be 55 cents, and that takes care of the first minute, and then 23 cents for each additional minute, so that's just times 19. All right, so I get $4.92 for this one. And if I write a general equation, that's going to look kind of like number 2, where t is the number of minutes. I'm going to have cost equals 55 cents plus 23 cents times t minus 1. That makes sense? All right, so you don't have any problems to work on, but I do have something I want you to do. I would like you to create a real-life application problem, all of your own imagination, and you will solve it tomorrow with a classmate. Identify your dependent and independent variables, and how about no squaring stuff, okay, James? No squaring or cubing or anything. Let's make this pretty straightforward and realistic. Have a wonderful evening, and I will see you in the morning.